James Steinhubel with Jeff Lorenz on the Jeff Lorenz Show on Real Estate Channel, TVYou. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having us again.
That's good. That's good. You're looks like you're in a little bit different office. What's going on today?
Well, I am, as with most people that are social distancing and working from home. I am working from home today. Um, I've got a number of kids, and they are all in school. So today was a day of homeschooling this morning.
Excellent. We've got a special guest today on our show. We have Mr. Dave Stults of Court Stults, a partner in Court Stults. Why don't you introduce him, Jeff?
Well, Dave Stults is a good friend of mine. Obviously, in our business, we work very closely with a number of lawyers, and Dave and I become friends through our connections at the Chamber of Commerce. We're both past presidents there, and he's become an incredibly valuable resource for me in my business. And I thought that perhaps the listeners could get some value out of some of the insights that he has on real estate.
I'm happy to be here, James.
Excellent. Good to have you. Good to have you. So, how are you guys doing? Looks like you're working from the near comfort of home as well today. So how's business?
Well, I'd have to say that business is a little bit slow in some regards. I think the same as everybody in the COVID pandemic, James. We've certainly seen a definite slowdown in some areas of our business. I think a lot of that is just related to the initial backlash of I wouldn't say backlash, related to the initial reaction of people to the COVID pandemic, where they began to try to keep cash, to hoard cash, to reduce expenses. And the way you do that is by not taking on projects, by not purchasing. Banks are not lending as much money because they've used up a lot of their cash with the Canadian Emergency Business Account $40,000 loans. So the restrictions and the requirements are heightened. That puts a little bit of a damper on business. And when a bit of a damper gets put on business, you get a bit of a damper on the need for those sort of legal services. People don't want to go out because they don't want to take risks. I think now with the reopening, hopefully we'll see this begin to turn around. I think we're certainly in maybe the lowest point right now, but it could continue for another 3 or 4 weeks. That is possible. I'm hopeful it won't.
So, but, business has been going. I see the sold signs going up and, people moving. So, real estate's happening. So how you guys been handling conveyancing and documents? How's that been working?
At my office, we have a number of protocols in place. People no longer have to come into the office physically to sign documents. The Law Society has been working with the Land Titles Office, and they've come up with a number of different approaches to have documents that would normally require you to attend in front of a lawyer or a commissioner or a notary executed remotely using video conference. Some people prefer to still come to the office because there can sometimes be a great volume of paper. And so to have people print it off and connect with you via Zoom or FaceTime to sign things, they feel it's almost more time effective to come to the office. So we've put a number of protocols in place where, we'll make sure we stay 6 to 8 feet away. We have rubber gloves and new pens, and we wipe everything down with a Lysol wipe. So to take you through it briefly, I would put on a pair of latex gloves. I would Lysol wipe them. I would then take the Lysol wipe the table, put fresh gloves down, fresh pens down that have been Lysol wiped. That way nobody has to touch anything when they come into the room. And then when they leave, we have a protocol for them to go use the washroom, wash their hands, and get out of the building. So we feel we've created a pretty safe environment for people to sign. And if they wish to sign remotely, we're open to doing that as well, because that's very easy for us too.
That's it's very wise, it's very astute, but it's good corporate citizenship. So appreciate it, right? So the other part of it is on the the more advanced kind of real estate that's coming through your office, some of the caveats of offer to purchase, releasing caveats, getting through land titles, registrations, mortgage registrations. How's that all been working?
Everything is the same in that regard with the Land Titles Office. They still require the original documents, so nothing has changed there. So when I say people execute remotely, if you were, say, buying or selling a house, James, the documents would be signed just like we're doing now over Zoom, but you would still have to send the original back to me, at which point in time I could witness it and put some specific language on the document before we send it for registration. I think with land titles, and I've not looked into this, but there's a delay in registration anyway, and a lot of the way things happen. I mean, land titles could get the documents, quarantine them for a week. That's probably not going to affect anything because oftentimes in busy real estate seasons, land titles could be running at 5, 10, 15 business days behind anyway. So I think they're able to make the process safe on there and just by quarantining the paper. But I'm speculating at that. I don't know.
Now, and then last kind of business question is with dealing with the local development permits and the governments and pushing through any of the larger projects. Has any of that stalled? Have the local governments and the planning departments been workable?
Everything is delayed simply because there are less staff, or when staff are working from home, it's taking more time to get answers, to get things done. If you had to contact your bank, so a good example would be when people have to go and get a certified check or a bank draft for their cash to close to bring to the lawyer. That's now quite a process for those people. That's not, I'm going to go to the bank and get it. It's, I've made an appointment to go to the bank at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Hopefully I'll have it to you by Friday morning. And in a lot of cases, people, they don't even get in to the bank, and the same thing is happening in terms of permits, applications related to real property reports, any of that. It's all being delayed for sure, but that's not a question of volume because not a lot is happening. It's just a question of staffing, I think.
Mm-hmm. So then overall, being a member of the Alberta Law Society and an agent of the court, you're comfortable. Like the system seems to be just a little bit slow, but we can, as buyers and sellers of real estate, we can be comfortable with the system.
Do you mean the system in terms of new changes that have been put in place to deal with the COVID pandemic?
Well, just the overall functioning of the legal and real estate law system. So the titles are transferred and sales can be secure.
100%. The systems in place for real estate have been honed and crafted over decades. Nothing has changed significantly due to the COVID pandemic, save that the Law Society and land titles have really gotten together to make it workable for people's safety. But there's not going to be any issues, I don't believe, with people committing fraud. It would have to be a pretty unique and intensive scheme that somebody would use to have me witnessing you signing a document and then claiming that the document came back to me and is different in some way. And of course you can record Zoom meetings, so you could go back on the recording and say, okay, this looks the same. It would be a very difficult scenario, I think, for someone to utilize that to take advantage. I think where you see more concerns, as is always the case in these scenarios, James, is that the more people have to do things remotely, the more opportunity there is for someone who wants to create a problem to get the advantage of changing the information on a bank transfer or a wire when people are trying to do things remotely. I think that's a common fraud now. We get a lot of ALIA alerts, which is the Alberta Law Insurance Association. They send out alerts about different frauds. Those are more common frauds where people get the opportunity to change wire information. I don't think it's a question of transfer. It's more a question of money and funds, but there's nothing new there. That's an ongoing battle.
And my line of thinking was more like real estate transactions, whether it's someone renting an apartment to people doing a section of land for development. There's time sensitivities, so that's what I was more. It has these slowdowns and the bits of information as they're moving differently. Can we still have confidence that we can put deals together and they're not going to fall apart because the system's not churning.
Yes, I think you could have confidence. Even in the traditional real estate market before the pandemic, timelines are always tight for people who want to do transactions. And there's never a situation where someone wants something done quickly and everything is just business as usual. It's always people working very hard to make it happen. And I think in these circumstances, people will work hard to make it happen as well. We've certainly seen some delays, but more now than ever, I think that both sides to a transaction are very cognizant of that. So you see people who are just really understanding of a purchaser that says, well, my bank said the mortgage money is going to come late. You never see a seller taking a hard line. They say, we understand what's going on in the pandemic. And that's probably because they're usually, if they're selling a property, they're probably buying a property on the other end and suffering the same problem. So I could say you'd have confidence. I don't think anyone's going to lose any deals over timelines.
Okay, that's good news. I wanted to get back to you, Jeff. I wanted to go over this property that you sent. It's very interesting, but before we move on, is there anything you wanted to ask Dave? You can stay with Dave, but we just wanted to get your questions.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Most of our conversations are when I'm calling them in half panic, trying to work out some language in the contract. Just as I said during our last conversation, there's our business has become incredibly litigious, and at times it's just scrutinizing elements within the contract, and sometimes occasionally you'll find someone who's trying to find their way out, and Dave, which we haven't really talked about, but he's one of the few real estate lawyers who also does litigation. And so one of the big advantages with Dave is that he has an idea of what is going to happen if you do have to go to court and have a conversation about it. And I think sometimes people are okay at navigating a term in a contract, but they don't necessarily know what that means if you're standing before a judge and you're trying to make your case. And Dave certainly adds that dynamic, which again is, I'm not sure if there are too many, if any others that I know of that do that. So good on you for having that expertise and for being a resource for me. I appreciate that very much.
My pleasure.
I think the only question that I would have for you, Dave, is right now, given that the way things are going, what is the delay, if there is one, in terms of the typical process for registration? In any typical spring market, we know things tend to get backed up a little bit anyway at land titles. And so we would typically, as realtors, adjust a few extra days for things like financing and that, just because of the excess business that we're doing in the spring market. We don't have the excess right now, but as you mentioned, there's obviously a pullback in terms of the number of people that are actually doing the work. Is that delay longer, or is it about the same as we would expect at this time of the year?
Certainly, there's not a big delay at land titles right now. I don't think too much because there's so few transactions. So they're not necessarily going at like ordinarily in May, they may be at 15 business days behind. And what I mean by that, James, is the date you submit the documents for registration, they'll get registered 15 days later. They're not at that sort of pace right now. I think the last time I checked, they were at 4 days, which is quite good. Where you're seeing the delay is more with the banks, because banks are being inundated with people who are desperate to get credit, desperate to push off mortgage payments, all of those sort of things. So they're just going 24/7. I feel like, obviously they're not, but that's how you feel, right? So I think you need to allow more time for financing, and I think that is probably. Ordinarily, you would expect to see financing turn around very rapidly. I think you need to say you need at least 5 days from when people are going to be, coming in to sign the documents at the lawyer's office to getting the money. We used to be able to get money 2-3 days. In terms of what you would put in the contract condition dates, I think you want to give it a couple extra weeks if you can, because it's so uncertain out there and people just have a lot more difficulty getting into the bank. So I think 2 weeks would be more than safe enough.
Excellent. That's excellent. I'm just gonna share my screen. We're gonna go to the property time of our show. We got a hot property here to take a look at. So just let me know when you see the screen there, Jeff, and tell me what we're looking at.
It's still coming up here, but this is a listing that we took just a couple of weeks ago. And for anybody who is kind of the opinion that things have slowed down, I can tell you that they haven't for the right properties in the right neighborhoods, right price point. This is a 4-level split in Sherwood Park that has been updated on the inside, in particular throughout the main level. They put in a new kitchen, new flooring, just a really well kept family home in a family neighborhood, and it's priced under $400,000. And when you have a decent property within this price point, you're going to get interest. And we've had in about 2 weeks in excess of 13 or 14 showings. Only a few days ago, we were having a conversation about how things had slowed down. And for sure they have within certain price parameters and certain product. But a property like this is getting a lot of interest. And I wouldn't doubt, if I had to pick one of the listings we have in our inventory right now, this is quite possibly the one that we'll see have an offer on it next. Again, just because of it being a really decent house, family home under $400,000 in Sherwood Park.
That's fantastic. Okay, yeah. So how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach us just about anyway, but certainly through our website at Lorenz.com. We do have our office in Sherwood Park on Athabascan Avenue. next to the Lowe's car wash there. We're actually quite close to Dave Stults, so there's always an opportunity to walk across the street and say hello as well. And again, just another reason why he's been a great resource for us is our customers are, they just have to walk from one door to another if they need
That's
to.
good. And yourself, Dave, what's your website and how do people get a hold of you?
If you're looking to get a hold of us, you can go to www.courtandstults.com. That's all one word. It's all letters. And you'll have contact information there. I'm happy to take emails from anyone. If you have any questions about any area of the law, my email address is very long. I'll say it really fast. d.stults@courtandstults.com. There are no Zs, all S's.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, James Steinhubel with Jeff Lorenz on the Jeff Lorenz Real Estate Show on TVYou, the real estate channel, with special guest, Mr. David M. Stults, partner at Court Stults. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, James. You as well, Jeff.
Appreciate it. Thank you.